to you from Walvis Bay, Namibia, on the southwest coast of Africa. It has been so long since I have talked with you all and touched base, but I'm so excited now to share with you what God is doing in my life, because I've had a lot of really crazy adventures and stories and a lot of work, but God is doing a lot. So I'll start sharing what's happened, a few highlights since December, and then I'll tell you what God is currently doing in my life. So first, I'll go back to December, which was Maputo, Mozambique. And in Maputo, we had Christmas and New Year's. And I learned a lot about sacrificial time there. Like, a couple instances of that was the day after Christmas, I was on gangway watch, which is like security watch outside the ship. And it was super cold and rainy, and I was just miserable. Like, I was not having it. And then a volunteer came to the gangway box because she needed a badge. And she noticed that I wasn't doing well. I didn't know her at all. And she was like, "Can I pray for you?" And it meant a lot to me. And I remember, I really wanted to be friends with her because it just impacted me so much and it changed my whole day. And then a couple weeks later, she wound up joining the ship and sailing with us. And now she's even working in deck department, so I can work alongside her, which is so crazy. Another person that taught me about sacrificial time in Maputo was a man named Shivot. So I went on something called To the Streets, which means I got to go to the streets of Maputo and just share the gospel with anyone I met. I was with a Danish man and a Brazilian. The Brazilian translated because they spoke Portuguese there. And we wound up going to the local marketplace. And this guy jumped up and started trying to sell us his paintings, right? And we were like, "Oh, no thank you, no thank you." And then he took off his sunglasses and he was like, "Wait, you're from the Logos Hope?" And we were like, "Yes." And he told us that he gave his life to Jesus because of the ship. And he was so excited. And while he was talking with us, there were two guys standing nearby that were laughing at him and making fun of him. And we had these little flyers that explained the gospel on them. And the first thing he did was take half of the flyers and go straight to those men that were laughing at him and share the gospel with them. And it just impacted me so much, his fire for Jesus. And he was like, "We have to share these flyers with everyone in the marketplace. We can't have any left." And so we took the flyers and we distributed them, and we had nothing left after that. And so actually I'm telling this story because I'd love for you all to pray for Shivot still. He is such a light, and Maputo is a very dark city. So I think he really needs support and a believing community around him. After Mozambique, we sailed to South Africa, where we stayed for 6 months. Long time, and we went to 5 ports there. The first port was called Richards Bay. It's kind of like countryside, and in Richards Bay I had my first changeover, which means that a lot of people left the ship and then a lot of people joined. It was a really crazy time. It was challenging because a lot of friends left, but also really exciting because I got to help train the new deckies and how to do the job and felt more secure in my role on the ship. I also began to discover South African culture. So biltong, rusk, really loud birds. And I also met a police sergeant who claimed that Nelson Mandela was a clone who was placed in presidency by Freemason. So that was very interesting. After Richards Bay, we went to East London. No, we did not go to East London. We went to Port Elizabeth, or Beha. I can't pronounce it. There's a click at the beginning. And in Port Elizabeth, my parents actually got to visit me. It was so cool. My mom, she baked a whole loaf of banana bread and carried it with her from Germany in her bag. And when she gave it to me, I almost cried. It was so sweet. After Port Elizabeth, then we went to East London. And East London, it started to get colder and rainier. And I got to go to a church in the downtown area multiple times. God really brought me back to that place on accident. And that church really touched me. They had a soup kitchen that they did once a week for the homeless. And they also had a program to help people get their lives back in order. And I still am in contact with someone from that church who's praying for me in my ministry on the ship. Such a cool place. In East London, I also got a license to crane things. So now I'm able to crane stuff like pallets from containers and gangways and different things. So now I can use a crane before I can drive a car. Yeah. After East London, that brings us to Durban. In Durban, we stayed there for 2 months, a really long time. 3 of those weeks we were in dry dock. So during dry dock, everyone from the ship left except for the essential crew. And the people, like, so deck, engine, some galley, other people. And we stayed back and did a lot of work on the ship. I have never been so dirty in my whole life. The first week I was in charge of the crane maintenance team. So I now know cranes inside out. Like, we had our heads inside this crane, wire brushing, getting the rust off. And I also helped do maintenance on the mast. So it was really hard work, but also the community grew a lot closer together. It was really good. After Durban, we went to our last port in South Africa, which was Cape Town. And everyone had been telling us about Cape Town before we got there. And it was a really beautiful city. We had Table Mountain and the mountains all around us, and a lot of sea lions too in the port that were so cute. It was a very unique city, and it was very busy. A lot of people came to the ship there, so it was really exciting. But also in Cape Town, I was asked to take on the role of a team leader in deck. So a team leader basically helps lead work for a group of deckies, like 5 to 6 of them, and also is kind of like a spiritual role model for them. So it's like a double-sided coin. It's during working hours and beyond, where I just get the chance to encourage people, like, to be the best they can be, and also to fellowship together and glorify God together. It's a lot of responsibility, and I think it'll be really challenging. But I took a couple weeks to think about it, and then I said yes to the role. So I officially became team leader recently, a couple weeks ago. And that brings us to Walvis Bay, Namibia. So that's the port I'm currently in now. Namibia is 95% desert. It's really crazy. It's so different than Cape Town, like from mountains to desert. But it's really beautiful, and it's kind of a peaceful port after how busy it's been. So I've had time to reflect on everything God is doing and has done, and the people He's brought into my life. And I'm trying to figure out how to seek God's guidance as a team leader. So that's what's happening now. And soon will be the next changeover. So that'll happen in September, where we're going to lose about half of the crew on board the ship and get a lot of new people. So the ship will completely change. It'll be like a new place. And I would love your prayer on that to get the needed people, because we're already low and losing so many will be kind of devastating, but I'm trusting that God will use this time actually to grow people closer together. So I'd love your prayer for that, and also as I take on the leadership role and what that looks like, and how I can get guidance from people who are older than me and have more experience, because the ship is mostly young people, so it's hard to find like a leadership role model who has more experience than me. I'm super excited now, like looking forward to see what God has in store in Angola. That's where we're going next, and to deeper into West Africa. So thank you so much for listening. I love and miss you guys so much, and talk to you next time.